Welcome to Swish and Flick, an all Potter podcast.
Swish and flick. Everyone? Swish and flick.
Hello and welcome to episode 65 of Swish and Flick. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Megan.
I'm Katie.
And I'm just old Sarah.
Just old.
Oh, Sarah.
Oh, Sarah. This episode is sponsored by Jordan Rose. Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jordan.
Today, as part of a 2-week Halloween break from our normal episodes, we are going to talk about the Wizarding World in America, Ilvermorny Beginnings, Makusa, and the Salem Witch Trials. So join us as we learn more about American wizarding history and even some history of the No-Mages. Yes, ma'am.
Should we tell them now or later that it's going to be like odd episodes because obviously like we're talking about new things, but we've decided to split it up kind of for our sake and sanity and yours.
Right.
Your listeners is who I'm talking to. You personally, who has the headphones on or listening out in the open. Talking to you.
In the wild. We can see you behind the bush.
Bringing Swish and Flick to the world. So on this episode, like only Tiffany and I are talking. Not that Megan and Katie can't talk. They're here, obviously, but we only have our sections, and then the next episode we're gonna bring out is Megan and Katie's section. And so we're gonna talk about some America stuff, you know?
Yes.
I'm really excited and nervous. Ooh, my finger was bleeding. That's interesting.
You get yourself a Band-Aid. Alrighty. Do you have news?
I do. I think this is really cool news, too.
We don't have news.
I
We
have
a weekly profit.
I have weekly profit. Yeah.
Oh. Well. My bad.
So a report came out about Bloomsbury's profits, and it shows that Harry Potter's sales are continuing to rise still.
Yeah.
So there was a surge in sales of Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential book due to him passing away, unfortunately. And that was like their number one increase in revenue. However, Harry Potter was close behind. It helped to fuel a rise in first half profits and revenue for Bloomsbury. And it says that the sales were up 5% in the first half of this year, despite the surge in popularity last year before the 20th anniversary of J.K. Rowling's creation. So there was already a huge surge last year because of the anniversary, and now it went up even more this year. So,
That's
guys,
awesome.
Potter is not going anywhere.
Nope.
I said it in the last episode. I think we're going to be getting some more. Not Harry, but
Wizarding World.
Ilvermorny. Yeah.
I'm into that. I didn't know when she started diving into this that she had so much information on just Pottermore about America, like magic in general, Makusa, Ilvermorny. I was surprised.
Yeah.
Pleasantly.
It says also in here, last year, Harry Potter's anniversary generated one of the highest levels of revenue since the initial publications of the books, and we've been pleased to build on this momentum in the first half of this year. So,
Nice.
Also, if not for the growth in Harry Potter sales, Bloomsbury's income from its children's division, which remained flat at $31 million in the first half, would have fallen 9% year on year. However, it hasn't, thanks to Potter.
This is crazy.
I know.
Think about I just love our fandom.
20 years it's been, and it's still
yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it was really cool.
I will say this, though, and I love all of the information's coming out. I love all of it. But at the same time, I need them to stop. I'm going broke.
I gave you a gift card.
Well, I just got that Hogwarts pop-up book, which is... It looks really cool in pictures, but to see it in real life, it's just amazing. And then I said to Tiffany, my best friend's birthday was the 21st of October. And so I tried to go to the bookstore the night before, and the gods and all fate, and everyone was like, it's not happening, because I went to one bookstore that was supposed to be open till 9. They closed for whatever reason at 7 that day, and then I went to Barnes and Noble, and the whole thing was out. Like it was at Crocker Park, if anyone knows what that is, in Westlake, Ohio. Half of it was dark, like all of these stores, all this stuff. So I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not supposed to go to the bookstore today. But
That's crazy.
I know. So I went to the bookstore the next day, and I saw that they had the American version of the history of Harry Potter, like for the exhibit.
Yep.
And so I'm like, oh, well, like the cover's different. Let me just see if the inside's the same. I'm not going to buy it. Well, it's not, but it essentially has the exact same information.
You bought it.
I did. So now I have the the one from the UK, the one from here, and then I have like the kids version. I don't need all of these things.
I was going to get
You know who does?
the black cover, the new one, like when we were in New York.
Yeah, well, I have it.
So.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it.
Alana likes books.
I did buy the that Honeyduke Scratch and Sniff book.
Oh,
and
it's
I
so
just
cute.
It's so cute.
Yeah. I just made sure your baby got like 7 new books, so I picked those all out.
Books.
That like
reading.
I will say that starting this reread in this podcast, I had technically of my own copies 1 set of all of the books. I had a paperback set, essentially. They weren't all the same cover. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, I think.
Oh my god.
Oh.
The psychosis.
Guys, I bought a lot of books in England, too. Oh, Scotland, actually, is where I bought the books. Yep. I bought a whole set. A whole set.
And you
Nice
brought back a
little-
whole set of books.
I
Jesus.
did. And I bought the UK version of the Beetle the Bard illustrated one.
And I'm tempted to buy that because it's,
really
different.
Pretty. Yeah.
I will say, though, what I really like about the American one, and I don't know how different it is to the UK version, but I like in the Tale of the Three Brothers how Death looks, because he's like, spoiler alert, he's illustrated as like just a skeleton, and I love skeletons. So I very much enjoyed that. Yeah. Anyways, we can get back to the actual topic at hand.
I mean, we're just proving the point of Bloomsbury, that we're feeding them money because of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
True.
So.
Which illustrated edition of Beetle the Bard is the UK version?
It is like, it's very yellow. The cover is very yellow, and there's like three people illustrated, except I'm not sure if, I think maybe it's the brothers.
Yeah. No, I see it.
Yeah.
So, which one should I buy?
You should buy both, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to end up buying both.
I'll buy the American one right now. The other one's not Prime, so I'm like, whatever.
Oh, no,
right.
I don't, yeah.
Let's,
Guys, UK versions of
get back to
books,
this.
bookdepository.com, free shipping. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's
Go there.
that's what I'm going to use to get it
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, I will do that. All right. It's, time for the recap.
I feel like it's been a while.
It has.
Like, to our listeners, it hasn't.
But it has for us.
But it has for
Right.
us.
It's been like 3
Has
weeks.
it been like a month?
Maybe
I think
a
it's been a month.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's been
a while.
Yeah. We bulked up so much for our trip.
Yeah.
All right, here's your recap. So, last time, Harry and Hermione got back just in the nick of time. And
Who?
Snape was absolutely livid. He was convinced that Harry Potter had something to do with it. And speaking of Snape, he's kind of rude and lets slip that my boy's a werewolf. And then he has to quit. I don't really like that. Jessica, I'm looking at you.
Sad.
That's super sad. But Harry has something to cheer him up on the way back to the Dursleys. He gets a letter from Sirius, a new owl for Ron, or a pig, I don't know, and a permission slip to get into Hogsmeade. And that is the end of another book.
How?
I don't
How?
know. I don't
It's
know.
crazy.
And
And to-
guys, a book to movie comparison is coming. Don't
Yeah.
worry, we're
Yeah.
not skipping it. It's coming.
Yeah.
We just, in my a little bit of an OCD mind, we needed to talk about the Salem Witch Trials for Halloween, so that's
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah, we thought of that a long time ago, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we wanted to, at least Tiffany and I know have discussed this a lot, wanting to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I will be honest and tell you that I forgot to write a summary, but, you know, it's not really super
Well,
important in
yeah.
this thing. So we're going to talk about some real American history here, and also dive into some more of like the J.K. Rowling's magical history of like the United States, which I don't know how many people have read. So hopefully you'll enjoy our little tidbits.
True.
So Tiffany really wanted, I'm going to just tell you what she's starting with is Roanoke, because she really wanted to add that in, and I'm like, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But we'll hear what she has to say. Yes. So, well, I was trying to do everything super chronologically, and I have a whole timeline that I'm working on, and I'm like, it's not the same year. She's like, I don't really care. So, I mean, I'm excited to dive deep. I hope that we do this justice enough for you guys to really enjoy it. So, because I know it's a little bit divergent of what we normally do, but don't worry, there will be wizarding, legitimate J.K. Rowling worlds in here. So, listen along and enjoy.
So, I'm not going to lie, because I'm out of my comfort zone with this, because I am not an expert. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on Harry Potter. I know a lot, but not an expert on any of this. So bear with us if you are, and don't hate us if we mess up.
If we get something wrong, let us know in a nice way.
In a nice way. Be kind. There's too many meanies on the internet.
Yeah.
Megan and Katie, what I would like for you to do as we go through this is I want to hear if you can pull Wizarding World things out. If you can connect it in any way as you're listening and, commenting with us, I want to see what you can connect. Okay. I think that'll be a really cool task.
And then I guess our sections are a little different. We'll come up with something to make you guys do on the next episode.
Yeah. Megan and Katie, their stuff's mainly magical world.
Yeah. Makuza.
Because I wanted to do this in chronological order, so we kind of are trying to stay within that realm of the only thing we're going to be doing differently though with all of these episodes, we're going to do this one, then Megan and Katie are next, and then we're going to have a whole separate Ilvermorny episode, because there's so much to talk about with that, I think. And we again want to do it justice and want to give it its own time and space. So keep your ears out for that.
And I'm also excited to I've read about Ilvermorny, but I didn't really absorb it, so I'd like to be like a quote unquote expert and like know the world as well as I know
Hogwarts.
Yeah.
Because
I have a feeling we're gonna need to.
Yeah. Well, and I hope that we really get more. And I mean, I think she is like not Megan. Kate. Nope. Tiffany said. She's like, I think we're gonna get Ilvermorny, and I hope. I like to learn all anything she's going to throw at me. I want to learn. Yes. And then I really, really love tying, especially because I, as an American, know more American history than world history and everything, because this is my country and I know more of it and I've learned more of it. So I'm excited to see things and tie them into what I already know happened in real time life.
True.
Yeah.
Megan.
I was also just going to say that
Can I just say that if you go on Pottermore and you see just how much Joe has given us on Ilvermorny and the history of it and all that kind of stuff, guys, she doesn't write something like that for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's not going to put all that information out there just because, they briefly mentioned it in Fantastic Beasts,
Well, and we get to see a teacher from Fantastic Beasts in the new movie, I believe.
From Ilvermorny, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did I say? Hogwarts?
From Fantastic Beasts.
From Fantastic
Beasts. Well, in Fantastic Beasts from Ilvermorny. So I think we're going to get more of it in the movies than we think.
Everybody, we want to let you in
and apologize.
So we, as humans, nothing's perfect. No one's perfect. We aren't. The internet isn't. Technology is not. So we had some technical difficulties. See, I can't even talk. Technical difficulties when we tried to record this Tuesday, I believe, and it's now Friday. So the very beginning that you just listened to, Megan and Katie are on. Unfortunately, that was the only day this week that we could record before getting it out this weekend. So they aren't with us, but so this episode's going to be a little bit different.
It's probably going to be nuts.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. So Tiffany is going to read Katie. So we had them read all of our notes because this episode was really just going to be my section and Tiffany's section anyways. And their sections are going to be on the next episode. Megan and Katie's, that is. So we had them read our notes and then write in their own comments on it. So we will be able to hear what they have to say just coming out of our own mouths. So sorry that it's jumbled and weird and kind of crazy. So we apologize, but we're only humans, and sorry that this episode is just crazy. But you know what?
We're sorry. We're sorry, like Dumbledore.
Yeah. So hopefully you enjoy. I'm excited to talk about all of this fun stuff, and hopefully we do it justice.
Tis true.
We aren't experts.
No.
So
I'm intimidated.
I honestly am a little bit as well. So.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're more prepared than I.
Oh. All right. So let us roll into the first section. Get it? Tiffany, what you talking about?
Spinach.
Oh. Spinach out of control with this crazy episode.
We're going to talk about the Lost Colony. The Lost Colony.
I've never heard of it.
Of Roanoke.
Roanoke.
Truthfully, though, I feel like I've heard about Roanoke before, and I didn't really think about it anymore until American Horror Story.
Oh yeah, yeah. It always intrigued me. I like a good mystery, so I remember hearing it. I think in grade school or something. And I was like, "Ooh, I want to dive more into it." And then I never really did, except for I saw some of the episodes for American Horror Story. But
yeah,
there was a movie.
It was a good season.
Called The Storm or something, and it was similar. Gosh, it scared the snot out of me.
Is there a Roanoke movie? I wonder.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I don't know, but it basically the storm rolls in this town, and crazy stuff happens while it's going on, and the next day, I could be totally wrong. I don't even remember what it's called, but the word Croatoan. Croatoan. The word Croatoan or something, or Roanoke or something was written on somewhere on real descriptive. Sorry, guys.
So I got nothing out of that. There was a thing with a Croatoan.
I want to say it was an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Oh,
his are always weird. I could totally be lying.
I got really mad at some of them. The Village, is that the one?
Oh, Into the Storm, I think is what it was called. Maybe not.
Into the Woods. Into the Woods.
It can't be that because that came out too late.
Well, I don't know. Alrighty, Rue. So for those of you who don't know or want to know more, I looked up on, I think it's the History Channel, is this definition. I can't remember. Anywho, it's known as the Lost Colony, and it was the first attempt at finding a permanent English settlement in North America, and that was in 1585 on Roanoke Island, which is today's Dare County, North Carolina. And the colony was sponsored by Sir Walter, Raleigh?
Yes, but I figured out it's into Storm of the Century, and it's a Stephen King thing.
Oh!
Very good. I recommend. It did scare me. I was also young, so
It's a movie, right?
yes. I think it's also a book. I would assume.
Shall we watch it on the Hallows of Ween?
We can.
Alrighty.
I
Anyway,
think it's not a book. I don't know.
but Sir Walter, is it Raleigh? I said it right? Because last time you made fun of me.
It was Raleigh. Yes. I should say I'm assuming it's Raleigh because it's Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay. He never set foot in this colony. And the initial settlement was established in the summer of 1585, but, back then they lack of supplies and not very good relationships with the Native Americans. And so many of the members returned to England with Sir Francis Drake, which was a year later. And so they left a small group of people there. Mm-hmm. And they said these men had all disappeared by the time a second expedition led by John White, who served as the colony's governor, when they arrived in 1587. So it's 2 years, and every single person's gone.
Silent.
It's
so creepy.
It is. It's really creepy. And I know some people will be like, okay, what does this have to do with Salem Witch trial stuff? Well, I just think it's interesting.
When we were doing the notes, Tiffany's like, I really want to talk about it. So I looked it up because I wanted everything to be in chronological order. And she was like, I go, well, the Salem Witch trials started in 1692, and this was in 1580, where 85 is when it was established.
Yeah.
So it's a long ways away. And she's like, well, I still want to talk. But I'm like, sure, go ahead.
Well,
It is interesting. I do find it fascinating.
it's crazy.
Yes.
So it says White. So this guy, the governor, John White. Where is it? Virginia Dare was his granddaughter, and she was born shortly after that, which made her the first English child born in the New World, by the way.
Cool.
They left for England in late 1587 to request assistance from the government, but they couldn't go back to Roanoke until August of 1590 due to the Anglo-Spanish War. But upon the arrival, the entire colony was missing with only a single clue to indicate what happened to them, and it was the word Croatoan carved into a tree.
It's so crazy.
So Megan interjected here with some facts. She says, Sir Francis Drake. I'm not reading, Megan. Sarah is.
I mean,
See ya.
you could read it. I don't
No.
care.
I forgot that fast. Hashtag mom brain.
So Megan wrote in here, so Sir Francis Drake, so they did, when they were in London, they did a walking tour, I believe like a Harry Potter walking tour of London. And she says, on our walking tour in London, we stopped at his ship on the Thames River. His ship was called the Golden Hind, and it has a gold deer on the front, and it's a doe. So Patronus, question mark, question mark, question mark.
Doe.
A deer. It's a female deer.
Ray.
A drop of golden sun.
Also my middle name.
So also he was a pirate back in his day, and it was rumored that he sold his soul to the devil. Interesting. And she says quite similar to a Horcrux. He was also in search of a philosopher's stone. Where have we heard that before?
I haven't.
And someone in China claimed to have found it when he was searching. Ironically enough, they died weeks after beginning a daily regimen of the elixir because it was liquid mercury. Okay.
Thank you, modern medicine.
Yeah.
Oh.
Also, after Sir Francis Drake circumnavigated the globe, Queen Elizabeth I gave him a locket.
What?
And
What?
it had a phoenix on it. So that's interesting, is what she says. Which is pretty cool. So I wonder, like,
That
if J.K.
stuff is, like,
Rowling
blowing
pulled
my
any bits.
Dear Joe.
I mean, I'm sure it's in her, like, History of Harry Potter book that I own 3 copies of.
Why do you own 3 copies?
I have a British version, the American version, and a kid's version. Let's not talk about it. I can't go into bookstores anymore.
I don't own any of those things.
You don't need them.
Can I have my teacher card back so I can go get a book?
Yeah.
Cool. Anywho, back to Roanoke. For many years, it was widely accepted that the colonists were massacred by local tribes, which, yeah. But no bodies were ever discovered, nor any other archaeological evidence. The most prevalent hypothesis now is that the environmental circumstances forced the colonists to take shelter with local tribes. But that's mostly based on like oral histories and lack of conclusive evidence, which you just pretty much have to guess at this point since literally you have nobody.
No idea.
No clue. Oh, just crazy. Oh, hold on. So I put a little theory in there, and I said, what if everybody was Avada Kedavra, and then their bodies were all turned into trees and foliage, like, what's his face got turned into a bone? Barty Crouch Sr. So, yeah.
Okay, so he, turned his father into a bone.
Right, and then buried it. So I was just thinking, like,
I like that idea.
What if Native American wizards did this?
Yeah. I like that idea.
I like it. I like
It's
it.
a good
I
theory.
like
Does anybody else
Thank
have
you.
any theories, like,
Yeah.
of what, okay. Yo, oddball.
I just know you can hear my eyes.
I like the idea of thinking, like, that
Wizards were
said,
behind it.
like, a million times.
Like.
Yeah, that's like a magical...
There's like a magical reason behind it. Yeah. Or like anything with
Or
wizards.
maybe, like, they were wizards in Europe, and they came to America to be like, I need to get away, and, like, to start, like, their own thing, and then made themselves disappear to be like, no one's going to be able to find me.
Harry, Ron, and Hermione in the woods when they had the protective spells over them.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Because they didn't want to be found. I mean, if you
Yeah.
don't want to be found, you can make yourself not found.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot.
maybe that's where they went. And then there's a little website. I look at ranker.com. I've never heard of it before.
I have, but like nothing. I don't really remember. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry. That makes no sense.
Nope. No sense at all. But they have theories behind, like theories that people have come up with, the reasoning why they were gone. Some of them are pretty typical, like native tribes have absorbed them, as either friends or like something not so nice. Maybe they fell victim to cannibalism.
Wow.
And then it says Edgar Allan Poe had a mysterious connection to the word Croatoan.
I'm seeing that in Katie's notes. I'm interested to hear it is.
Oh, okay. So I'm just going to read this directly. It says, the whereabouts of the Roanoke colony isn't the only part of this mystery. Archaeologists, skip it.
Archaeologists.
You can't do it either.
Archaeologists?
There it is. Why?
I don't know.
Because it's Friday.
It's Friday.
Got to get down on Friday.
I didn't remember the words.
I got you. No, I'm just so tired. Anyways, and historians are still trying to figure out why the word Croatoan carved into the post. And it says not much is known about the death of the author Edgar Allan Poe in 1849. After disappearing from a trip from Virginia to Pennsylvania, he turned up nearly unconscious and babbling incoherently in a gutter in Baltimore. While on his deathbed, Poe allegedly whispered the word Croatoan.
You shut your mouth.
I'm not going to shut it.
You thought I was going to say something else.
Shut the front door.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It says Croatoan appears at the site of many other mysterious disappearances. There's apparently an infamous stagecoach robber, Black Bart.
Does he have anything to do with Bart Simpson?
Could be. It was etched into the wall of the prison cell right before his release in 1888, and he was never seen again. And then it says there's a horror author, Ambrose Bierce, vanished while in Mexico in 1913, and the bed he last slept in allegedly had the word Croatoan carved in the post.
Do you think that people are doing this on purpose?
Could be.
Just curious.
It also says the colonists could have been massacred by a chief.
Ooh.
Infectious disease.
Yeah.
Spanish troops. Moida. Sabotaged as part of a plan to discredit Sir Walter Raleigh.
Ooh.
Maybe they tried to go back to England by sailing and didn't make it. Maybe they were executed as suspected witches.
Is that actually a thing? Is that a theory?
Well, it said the Croatoan tribe reportedly believed in witches, both male and female, who used black magic to do evil. And I learned from that magazine that I unfortunately forgot at school that there was like black magic, which people were like persecuted for a while, like way back in England in the day.
Yeah.
But then there was the magic, which was like the herbs and stuff to make people feel better, that they were like, okay, this is okay for now.
Yeah.
And then soon after that, it was like, okay, no magic at all.
Yeah.
But only if it helped you, you were like, oh, you're a good witch or whatever. It said the tribe could have interpreted the actions of the Roanoke colonists like spreading disease and encroaching upon native land as evil. So while local tribes in that area did not regularly execute witches, they did condemn dangerous outsiders to death, and the colonists may have seemed dangerous. They could have brought disease.
Yeah. No, I mean, you see later on in American history when they're bringing smallpox over, unfortunately. And, you know, it's one of those things that diseases like that,
Yeah.
when you bring it over, like the population where it comes from is typically immune, not necessarily immune, but like they've built up the antibodies to be able to fight these things.
Right.
So you bring in a brand new disease into a culture and they don't have the antibodies, a lot of them are going to get sick and unfortunately die. And you see that even nowadays with certain like things. Like you really should go out and, you know, germs are good for you. Not all the time, but you know, you do need some to build your tolerance to be able to fight off things.
Correct.
Which is crazy. Like,
unless your immune system is terrible.
and this is what the whole evolution thing where like, you know, some are going to be able to get sick and then survive. And there's some that don't. And you even see it with the flu.
True.
Every year, unfortunately, people die from it.
It's really...
You know, you have to have a strong immune system.
Yeah. Stay healthy, my friends. Wash your hands, you nasties.
Yeah, cover your coughs.
Honestly, cover when you cough.
Yeah.
All right.
Or, you know, just don't go outside. Stay indoors.
You just told us germs were okay.
Don't go outside. Don't do anything but listen to Swish and Flick.
Well, yeah. This next one's my favorite. Roanoke was the site of a zombie apocalypse.
Ooh.
Give it to me. It says some folks like to share on the internet that claims Roanoke served as ground zero for some kind of zombie apocalypse. This combines the aspects of other theories that the colonists were diseased and became cannibals.
What would make them become
You know what?
cannibals?
Lack
Like
of food.
I would rather not.
This one's interesting because it's exactly what I said, and I did not even scroll this far down when I first put this article out. The Roanoke colonists were transformed into trees. Hello, Dove ad. No thanks. The reptilian devil of the woods possessed the colonists. Okay. Colonists were the victims of North Carolina witches. So maybe there were special ones. And aliens.
Could be.
Could be. Oh, Virginia Dare survived and was turned into a beautiful white doe.
How dare she?
So that's all for that website.
Craziness.
Pretty interesting.
Is there anything about Amelia Earhart? Or
I
is that a
didn't see
different
that
one?
on there, no. Why?
Maybe that's in a different one. Which one were you on, just on Ranker?
Yeah.
So then maybe in the Destination America one.
I am on that one right now.
Craziness.
Are you at it right now? Can you read it?
No, I'm looking at Katie's notes.
Oh. Well,
I just didn't know, like, because I didn't look at these.
Even Edgar Allan Poe, dark magic, perhaps. This makes me really feel like I have to watch American Horror Story. Well, it's not going to be super factual, Katie, when it comes to American Horror Story. So, yeah, she says she liked the reptilian devil of the woods theory. Maybe I'll go back and read that one then. Anyways, it says, so the Croatoans believe that, quote, greater spirits manifested themselves in the forms of elements, and they reported a strange phenomenon that occurred at the same time as the vanishing of the colonists. Birds fell from the sky, and a large number of wildlife died abruptly in the area where the native people hunted. The Croatoans told of an evil spirit that took the form of a reptile. They said it was able to attach itself to humans, causing them to demonstrate the demonic traits like violence, I don't know what that word is, and greed. The Croatoans warned the colonists that the evil reptilian spirit had infested the entire region, and the infighting began. That's weird. They knew the settlers were infected with the creature's evil, and that's why they turned on each other.
Interesting.
Really interesting.
Yeah, like I wonder if they just like got sick and, for lack of a better term, like kind of went crazy and attacked each other.
Yeah.
That's a good plausible theory.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she brings up that maybe like how the reptilian thing attaches itself to humans like Voldemort did in the forest. And then she says her mind is blown, and the theory of Virginia turning into a white doe.
And if you're wondering who she is, if she didn't tell you, it's Katie, because I don't remember you saying that. She's reading Katie's notes.
I did say Katie.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, do we want to keep going about... those are pretty much just like the same theories.
Yeah, let us know if you guys
On
have any
Roanoke.
theories of what possibly could be wizarding kind or not with Roanoke.
So, Sarah, you put this article here. And it's really interesting because it's on Pottermore, and it's how do wizards keep themselves so secret from muggles?
Oh, I'm like, why did I put it there? And then I realized why I did.
Why did you?
Well, because, so again, wanted to do this in chronological order. And so the next kind of thing in the timeline is talking about the International Statute of Secrecy and why like it's important in talking about all of that. And if you don't know how much of a nerd I am, I have a whole timeline that I'm working on Google Docs that I call my wibbly wobbly timey wimey Harry Potter stuff, which if you're a Doctor Who fan, you'll get the reference. So chronologically, this is what happens first, is the statute of secrecy. So talk.
Obliviate.
What? What are we doing? Where am I? Who are you?
Thank you for being my best friend and just knowing to just go with
You're
it.
welcome.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
All right. Podcast over. No.
This is it. This is the end.
Say obliviate to me. We're done. So, but truthfully, when you think about it, I'm really glad they did this article.
You just Gilderoy Lockharted me. All right, go ahead.
Okay. It says the most extraordinary thing about Wizarding Society is not the magic, although that is pretty extraordinary, but the fact that they're able to keep it a secret.
Yeah.
But think about it. This is a whole entire world that is just kept so hidden. But it's not always been hidden, what this article says in the beginning, because during medieval periods, wizards were persecuted by muggles because they're afraid of magic. Mm-hmm. And so, do we blame them for going into hiding?
It makes sense.
No.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So this brings up the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy.
Never heard of it.
Me neither. Back before this was in, the extremist wizards, like we've seen throughout the series, wanted a complete war against the Muggles. And let's be real, Muggles would be extinct.
See, I don't know, though. Like, I get you could just be like a Avada Kedavra, but like, how would that work? At least now, like, days. Like, you have a semi-automatic weapon.
We've talked about this before, haven't
I know.
we?
I'm just saying. I think we have.
Yeah.
It just that's something I would be like interested to see. Like, what if you throw up? Is it a Protego, like a shield?
Yeah.
And they go to shoot you. Like, is it gonna?
But the thing is like, even if you have that, you have to think like there's invisibility cloaks. They're not all hallows, but they still work. There's apparition. You can just apparate behind that person, or
Yeah, but like, what if you're not a very skilled wizard and you don't have those things? You know what I mean?
Survival of the fittest, I guess.
Okay.
But I think that wizards are more fit.
Okay.
That's my view.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to hear everyone else's theories. Who's more fit? Me or the witches? I'm just kidding, but like, interesting. Muggos versus witches and wizards.
Oh, gosh. So, an international law had to be enforced by each country's Ministry of Magic. So, they were responsible for, keeping societies concealed, controlling all their beasts that are in their lands, beings, and spirits, and making sure that wizards don't blow everyone's cover. And that is a quote from the actual article. So what does that mean for wizards, right? It's to basically keep you safe. And it also requires them to have a certain level of responsibility over their magic and what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And you can see even at maybe the World Cup where they get really lax because the one campsite guy keeps catching on to that things aren't right.
Yeah.
And they keep having to modify his memory.
And you can tell too, like it even says like he's acting like a little bit strange because they've had to obliviate him so many times.
So is that just like addling his brains a little bit every time they do that?
Yeah, I would think so. Like,
that to me is not right.
I would agree.
Like, I get that you're trying to like hide yourself or whatever, but if you're like messing this guy's brain up, that to me is not acceptable.
Like, you would think, in my mind, like, have him like, as much as I don't want you to like use magic on him at all, but like, send him on a vacation for like a week. You know what I mean?
Like
so
Hermione did with her parents, sent them to a different country.
Yeah, but didn't she obliviate them?
Yeah, but can you send them away without?
I don't know. Just a thing to think. I don't know. But yes, I understand what you're saying.
I would think you would be able to. You don't need to. But she said she could put the memory back.
I believe they were able to. J.K. Rowling said she got her parents back. So I think it was like a different form of obliviate or a different I don't know what J.K. Rowling says, but something like that.
Well, why don't you ask her? Send her a text.
Well, she doesn't answer my phone calls anymore.
You know, it's kind of rude. Maybe you guys need to have a heart-to-heart.
Oh, I don't know. I think she's over me.
It even brings up this thing. It says wizards are required to dress like muggles when interacting with them. But, you know, some people like to wear kilts that don't match other things, and they look a hot mess.
Well, and you even hear from, like, Vernon. He's like, they just looked strange.
Right.
And, you know, like, unfortunately, it is nowadays where you, in real time life, see someone, you're like, they look a little odd. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, they're dressed like how they want to dress. And you see in the fourth book, the guy's isn't he wearing a dress or a house coat or something? Like,
I want him to be in a muumuu.
I think he is in a muumuu. And he literally was like...
What is the guy at the World Cup in like a kilt and then something that doesn't go with it? And then he's like, I like it. It's breezy.
I thought he's in a dress or something.
I thought he was in a kilt.
Regardless, he's got some type of...
breezy
Yes.
bottoms.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And they're not shorts that are just really wide or anything.
They ain't shorts.
Shorts.
So, trying to stay hidden, the wizards set up magical communities within Muggle communities, such as Ottery St. Catchpole, Goddard's Hollow, which is where I would totes live. And so this kind of like makes it so there's not so much obliviate and things, you know?
They're just kind of aware.
And we don't need to like confund all these muggles, right?
Yeah.
Let's just, you know, let them live their lives. Plus, you have to think, they're not going to catch your like everyday simple magic kind of stuff because they don't see nothing, do they? Mm-hmm. So you know what I mean? You got to be doing some big time, not big time, but like more obvious magic to get their attention.
Out of the norm for like, if they constantly see you doing whatever, they're not, like you said, they're not going to notice it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're doing something that's like completely out of the norm. Mm-hmm. Completely unusual.
Yeah.
And it seems like everything seems a little bit out in the country more so. So like, at least that we see in the Harry Potter books. So they're like, in my mind, the borough has like a lot of land. Mm-hmm. So there's not a lot of people around to even see it.
Exactly. Which is what I would like to be in if I were living in the Muggle magical world or in like an all wizarding community. Mm-hmm. So of course, like most things, this doesn't make everyone happy. So some wizards are like, no, we shouldn't be in hiding. We should be proud. Mm-hmm. You know, this is our world, whatever. And some people are like, it's cool. And so, someone, go ahead.
Do you want to just say, like, just so everyone knows, totally, it became, like, officially a thing in 1692, just so the statute of secrecy.
There you go.
I believe all the world.
The whole world.
The whole world in my hand. Okay. We spend too much time together.
We
but
do.
Just so you know, a time reference of when this started.
Yes. Okay. So someone by the name of Carlotta Pinkstone, for instance, and I'm going to quote this, campaigned to have the statute repealed in the early 20th century. She was imprisoned numerous times for performing spells in front of muggles and telling them the truth about magic. And then we have, on the other hand, someone that's more violent and extreme, such as our boy, Mr. Grindelwald. And his campaign of terror was to be like, yo, no secrecy, down with the muggles. So that's not kind.
'Tis not.
And then the next section of this article says some methods of secrecy are imaginative. So wizarding societies kept hidden from muggles with a lot of different kinds of charms. So we talk about Hogwarts and what it might look like to a muggle when we walk up. We're like, oh, does it look like an abandoned building, or do they suddenly remember they have something to do? So this says, if a muggle were to look at Hogwarts, for example, they would see it in ruin with signs telling them to keep out. So we were right about that. And where was that in the books, though? That was somewhere. Was it Hagrid that said that?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Me neither. We just
also
read them.
not the one to ask.
True.
So,
and then some are kept completely away from muggles, like Diagon Alley. But then there's some, like the entrance to St. Mungo's, which to the Muggle eye looks like a shaggy department store. Yeah. And you have to enter through a magical window and speak to a mannequin, which I didn't remember. Was that said anywhere except for...
I don't know.
It's been so long since I've read 5.
I don't know if I remember it from the books, but I know that I remember one from reading the articles on Pottermore and like somewhere on like a fan fiction that I read somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh man, it's crazy. But then we have the Ministry of Magic, which we know that you have entrances like the phone box and the loo.
Yeah.
Where you flush yourself, which
crazy. I
love that she made you flush yourself.
Go flush yourself.
She just has a great sense of humor, and I love it. But as everyone knows, keeping the secret's pretty hard work. So you've got to do a lot of memory charms. And if this statute of secrecy is breached, there's obliviators, which are specially trained ministry wizards, and they have to come and clean up your mess. So keep your magic to yourself. Oh, but I love this part because I believe I've said on this podcast that Nessie is real, and the Loch Ness Monster is something that is impossible to keep hidden because it says that it has been, the statute of secrecy has been repeatedly breached in Scotland because of the Loch Ness Monster, and Muggles know about it.
Awesome.
Nessie lives.
Because I like that, and I like the theory of like Bigfoot and everything.
Yeah,
like
it says in Tibet, the Yeti. Yeah. It got so out of control that they had a task force of wizards in the mountains to keep it hidden. Ooh, thank goodness that was.
Well, and even I was reading about Makuza, and there was like a breach, I believe in Washington or Oregon. I forget which state it was.
Yeah.
That they had I believe it was a Sasquatch like uprising because the woman that ran the department like believed that the way to like kind of get them in order was like harsh, like and they were like, nah, girl, we're not gonna. So they had an uprising because they didn't appreciate how they were being treated.
Up with the squatches.
Yeah,
up with the squatches. But one that we know about, I was reading Sorcerer's Stone to my students, and with Voldemort's downfall and all the owls and the shooting stars and stuff, that was almost a breach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in 1981, that was almost a breach. And then it says there are exceptions to the rules, which is like when you have like a Muggle-born kid. So, you know, that's acceptable, obviously. But that's a really cool article on Pottermore about it.
And as always, we'll post these links.
True. I've been talking so much.
Do you want me to read Katie?
Do you want to read Katie?
Sure.
Let's get a break from my voice. I know y'all love it, but...
So we were talking about like why we think it's so important, like the statute of secrecy. And I mean, I do. I think it's this is me talking, not Katie. What? Like, because we've seen in history that in real time life and in like
fake
just
time
this
life
world, like Harry Potter's world, that when we don't understand something or something's a little bit different than what we believe, that we tend to go to the extreme, you know, with certain world wars, like with the Holocaust and everything, like you're different, all that stuff. So I don't think it's a bad thing to be secretive. And I think that because then Tiffany posts, do you think the wizards should intervene in the Muggle world? I think that if it affects them, and I've talked about this, like, I think time and time again about with the world wars specifically.
Right.
How I want to see, and I'm going to assume that we get to see in the Fantastic Beasts movies, we saw interaction.
Yeah, we saw the planes.
That we are assuming. So I'm guessing that might be because we know his brother fought in the war.
True.
And I read, with reading about Makuza, and I'm sure that Megan's going to talk about this in the next episode, with the American Revolution, how Makuza and like the Ministry of Magic were involved. Like, the minister Makuza literally wrote to them and asked like if they were going to get involved, and they literally sent back like a four-word letter saying like sitting this one out. That's what Ministry of Magic says to Makuza during the American Revolution, and then Makuza writes back, "See that you do," or like something like that. Like, yes,
Shade.
it was like it. So it's interesting to read about it, and I'm excited to see it, and so I think that
we're gonna get so much. I guarantee it.
Yes, I hope. I'm really excited about all of this.
Well,
I like
because it's
to
our
more-
country,
yes.
you know.
And that's what I've said. Like, I, as an American, know my history more so than
Right.
like world history. Not that I don't know world history. I just know my own.
Like, it makes
better.
me think, like, okay, let's talk about the Civil War. Like, how many witches and wizards fought in the Civil War? Like, who was at Gettysburg?
Yes,
Because there was only one civilian that died in the Battle of Gettysburg. Like, is that because maybe witches and wizards were protecting the citizens in the city?
Hope, and I hope that, I know for me, like, I take a pride, for the most part, I'm in my country, and like, you know, all the men and women legitimately that are in our military, like, they hopefully, like, I would assume that wizards would treat it the same way. Like,
Yeah.
they're gonna, it's my country, and I'm gonna do what I can to like
'Tis
make
of
sure.
thee.
Yes, like it's we're gonna be there for each other, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I like to think that as much as sometimes people aren't wonderful human beings, it doesn't matter. You're fighting for the country, doing that stuff, you know?
Let's pause. We love our service members.
Yes.
Thank you. All military.
appreciate it.
We love you.
So then Katie says, I think it's really tricky business, and I'm constantly going back and forth in my head over whether or not the wizarding world should be kept a secret. I understand it because, most importantly, it seems necessary for safety reasons. The fear of the unknown plagues many things in humanity, and for witches and wizards, this is plain as the day is, words can't read.
Where is it? I'm looking for it.
This
I'm trying
is
to help
plain
you.
as the day with the Salem Witch trials, but at the same time, should anyone be forced into hiding for who they are? This is true. This makes me think of the LGBTQ plus community. Could you argue that for safety reasons, and that's like in quotations,
Yeah.
and because some people don't understand it, that the LGBTQ plus people should be kept secret? Definitely not. So that's where I'm struggling with it from a wizarding perspective. But it's also tricky because what about magical cures for illnesses? Is that to be shared? Is there a line to draw? So many questions, and now I feel like I'm rambling, so I think I'll stop there.
She brings up so many good points.
Yeah.
Because you have to think about the way that things should happen naturally. But then you think about, okay, well, we have all these things. Let's just compare it to modern medicine. We have all these ways that to elongate life and stuff like that.
But
Like, it's
would it work as well? Like,
I don't know.
Like, say I am like a witch, and I can cure
you're
this
a witch.
fellow witch or wizard's cancer.
Right.
But like, say, God forbid, I hope this never ever happens.
Don't say it.
Okay, I won't. But say person A has cancer, and they're muggle, no magic, as the French would call it. Or non-magique, I think is what they say. And if I'm a witch and I try to cure their cancer, like, what if it's not as effective, or what if it makes it worse? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wonder how
I don't know.
magic would affect
I don't know.
a muggle, no magic, etc. Like,
I don't know.
Completely, I agree with Katie, and I don't think.
Well, when she's comparing it to the LGBTQ plus community, you think, yeah, no, you shouldn't have to be in hiding. But we just said, for wizards, we would want to be in hiding. But when you think about it from the other way, you're like, no, you shouldn't be. So now, like,
Yeah.
now what?
It's like it's a tricky question.
It really is.
Yeah.
There should be an ethics course.
Yes.
Wizarding.
But at
ethics.
the same, like, I think also when you watch like X-Men, and you see all of that, when they find out like mutants are real and they're being persecuted.
Or even the
There's
supers
also-
in the Incredibles.
Yes, like it's interesting though if you think about it. Because there's those people that are at the extremes with both parties.
Yes. Ugh.
More so talking about like X-Men and stuff, not so much in real time life, but like
We don't want to talk about real time life.
I don't know. It poses a good question.
It's a tough question.
So let's hear from you guys, ladies, gents. What do you think? Would you want it to be kept a secret?
Yeah.
I would just be jealous because I'm not magical.
See, and therein lies an issue.
I'm also like, I'm not the person to ask because I'm a very accepting person. If you're a wonderful human being, you're cool in my book. You know what I mean? I don't care about any of the rest of this stuff.
We just care about good, nice people.
Yeah.
Be good humans. Puritans, let's talk about them. They were pure.
Were they?
No. Am I wrong?
This literally tastes like cereal milk.
Well, I'm glad you like it.
Okay.
Or you don't. Okay, moving on. So, let's talk about some witch trials, which pretty sad. And I'll have to, I should have done it earlier, but I would like to shout out my sister.
Oh, I shout her out too.
Oh, good. My sister is shy, but not shy. But she did not want to be on the episode. She said I could give her a shout out though. So this is Ashley's shout out. She loves history and everything about it. I think she should be some kind of educator teaching about the Civil War because she literally has a t-shirt that says Civil War Nut. She just loves history. So this is a shout out to her because she has been actually reading up about the Salem Witch trials. And so there you go, Boo Rook. Enjoy.
I can't wait for you to hear my shout out.
Okay. By the way, Sarah and Ashley are pretty much the same person. Moving on. The witch trials took place in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692 and 1693. And they're pretty much a stain on our history.
And you know what's crazy? And I'll talk about it a little bit more too. That they aren't the only witch trials in America, which when I was looking up, because there's in Europe, it lasted
European witch trials are,
hundreds of
yes,
years.
yes.
And when you think of the American witch hunts, it's Salem. But that's not like
But
the
that's
only.
not it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's just the one that's most well known.
Correct.
And sad. And really, it's only it's shortly lived where they were executing people.
Yeah.
Because it started June. And ended. The last people were killed in September of 62. No, 92. 1692. So just those couple of months, but they were still doing trials and everything. Anyway, sorry, go on. We'll get to it. Puritans. Who they be?
Wow.
You can tell I'm really excited about
She's really
it.
excited. I also have to say that did we tell them this was part one? Part one.
In the beginning, that was sorry about the whole jumble mess, but
Yeah.
yes.
If we said it, all right. If we didn't, this is part one.
Yeah.
I can call her a friend. I've never met her in real life, but I met her on Instagram because we have similar looking dogs. She has a dog that looks like Fozbear, and her name is Rebecca Dunbar, and she is awesome. I wish I could hang out with her in real life, but she is going to send me some of her work that she has done about the Salem Witch trials, and she lives in Glasgow. So where was I going with that? I'm not sure, but that's her shout out for part one. So the Salem Witch trials are considered to be like a unique flare-up from European suspicions brought to America by a few settlers. But like you said, this is not the only instance in that. Witchcraft was like pretty commonly talked about back in the day. And because a lot of it had to do with like medicine. We call it medicine now. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people thought it was like the stuff of witchcraft. Mm-hmm. Which, no friends.
Well, and it's also interesting to hear what like their medical practices were. Like there are people that literally believed like you'd let them, I forget what it's called, maybe like blooding or something, where they'd cut you and you'd bleed for a little bit, like
into
into
a
like
bleeding
a basin.
bowl. Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, you're bleeding all the bad stuff
Yeah,
out. Like, that's
yeah.
not how it works. You're just bleeding your blood out. Nobody makes me
Bleed my own blood.
Nobody.
Name that movie. Although belief in witchcraft was prevalent throughout American colonies, formal trials and executions occurred only in Puritan communities of New England, it says. But you said that that's not true.
In later years.
Okay. So Puritans thought they had like a unique mission in America, and they were originally, that was hard to get out, members of Protestant groups in England. And so they practiced that in the Church of England under King James I. And it says Protestants belonged to a religious group that was formed in opposition of the Roman Catholic Church in the late 1500s. And although the Church of England is a Protestant denomination, many aspects of the doctrine are based on Catholicism. All religions are linked. Mm-hmm. Literally.
Well, I mean, I believe they started the Church of England, so what's-his-face could divorce his wife, couldn't he? Whoa.
The 8th? Henry? What did you say? Not words. Oh my God. Why are we so in sync? Okay, I'm going to read this directly from here so I don't get anything wrong. Friends, I am not well versed. I do not have any kind of degree in this, so don't hate me. So it says the Puritans' protests angered James I and his successor Charles, which was 1600 to 1649, both of whom forced them to leave England. So they're already mad. After living in other European countries, such as the Netherlands, which was Holland, the Puritans began arriving in New England in 1620. And at that time, Puritans called themselves the Pilgrims and founded the Plymouth colony in Massachusetts with hopes of establishing their vision of God's kingdom on earth. AKA, let's force religion on people. 9 years later, another group of Puritans was given another charter and started in nearby Massachusetts Bay Colony, and all the Puritans had intense faith in themselves as God's chosen people. And they also brought European superstitions regarding witchcraft and the inferiority of women. Oh, that's cool. Which became crucial factors in the witch hunt persecutions in the late 17th century. More often than not, I believe that Time Life came out with a magazine on the Salem Witch trials, and it said about only 20% of the witches that were persecuted were men.
Yeah, most of them were
80% were women.
Yep.
And usually the ones that got called out for being a, quote, witch were the outspoken women.
Yeah. Well, or like...
standing up for,
yes.
your rights.
Yeah. It's interesting, just so y'all know, in Harry Potter, or I should say Wizarding World history. So with Ilvermorny, I believe her name is Zolt, is how you pronounce it. Sayer, I believe is her last name.
Sayer, yeah.
She came over in 1620. Just so you get a time reference of like when all of that is happening as well. But going back to the Puritans and all that stuff in Salem Witch trials, you'll see that a lot of people, I believe, were like scapegoats. Like, oh, I'm fighting with this person, they're a witch.
Yeah.
Or like you said, outspoken. You'll see with John Proctor, his wife, and he disagreed with everything. So his wife first was called is like a witch, and he like protested so much that they're like, oh, I bet you're one too. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy.
Ugh, it was literally, I mean, we use the term witch hunt today for anything like that. And like, that's literally what it is. It was people like calling you out for outrageous things. And, people just throw that term around. Well, it's deep rooted, guys. There is an article on Pottermore called History of Magic in North America.
It's a big read because it has centuries.
Yeah. So I'm just going to kind of piece out the 14th century through the 17th century. And this is written by Rowling directly. Just so you know, I don't know if a lot of people know this, Pottermore has writers. They're not all Rowling.
Correct.
Okay.
I thought people would know that.
I don't know if they do.
I still believe that everything
It's
from
canon.
Pottermore is canon because she has to
approve it. Yeah.
Okay.
Glad we're on the same page. So, she says, though European explorers call it the New World when they first reached the continent, wizards had known about America long before muggles. But we in America apparently call them nomads, short for No magic.
I don't like. Just Muggle.
I am.
Muggle's
Muggle's just so
is
much better.
ingrained in my head. Yeah.
So they had. What does it say? It said various modes of magical travel, brooms, and apparition among them, not to mention visions and premonitions, meant that even far-flung wizarding communities were in contact with each other from the Middle Ages onward.
That's really cool that they could speak essentially through visions and premonitions.
I like that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I really enjoy that.
One would say it's magical.
One would. So it says the Native American magical community and those of Europe and Africa had known about each other long before the immigration of Europe no-mages in the 17th century. Of course, wizards are going to be ahead. Mm-hmm. And they were already aware of the similarities between their communities. Certain families were magical, and sometimes magic appeared in unexpected families, like Muggleborns.
You know what they call them? I mean, they're just no mage born, but it's like no dash mage dash born.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So it says in Native American community, some witches and wizards were accepted and even lauded within their tribes, gaining reputations for healing as medicine men or outstanding hunters. So I really like that she pulled that, like, medicine men. Mm-hmm. But others were stigmatized for their beliefs, and they were thought to be malevolent spirits, which you always get that. That's that black magic thing. And this is really cool. So the legend of the Native American, quote, skinwalker is said to be an evil witch or wizard that can transform into an animal at will. What does that sound like to you?
Well, there's a thing.
Animagus.
I mean, yes, it does sound like an animagus. It also makes me think of werewolves. But True Blood, which is also based on a book that Sam Merlot, he's a shapeshifter. And in it, he's like kind of, I think she's a shapeshifter as well. Or maybe she can only turn into a wolf. I forget what her name is. But he meets this girl. She can do the same.
Yeah. I remember that.
And she was talking about, I believe, in Native American culture. And this is on the show. I don't know if this is actually in the books that they're based on, because they obviously are a little bit divergent of the books.
That's also a book.
Correct. Where some people could turn into other humans, but like it makes them really sick. And Sam's brother not only is a shapeshifter, but like turns out to be like one of those people that is able to shift into other humans.
Creepy.
But it's like really difficult. And I think he dies from it. I don't remember for sure.
Well, it seemed like it would be funny.
Because he ends up turning into his brother. Whole long story, but that's something that it reminds me of, because I believe they call it, like, she even says like the skinwalker in the or at the show.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, you know, these people would turn into animals to escape the persecution, or they could use whatever they turn into to hunt for the tribes. And then, you know, people were faking magical powers and whatever. And, not good.
Well, I would say you'd see that nowadays too.
Oh,
like,
for sure you see that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Native American wizarding community is particularly gifted in animal and plant magic. Its potions, in particular, of sophistication beyond much of what was known in Europe. I wonder if they could teach Snape a thing or two. Mm-hmm. He's obviously a master of potions, so I wonder if he could. I'm sure he could learn from them. So it says the magic of the wand originated in Europe. Wands channel magic so as to make the effects both more precise and more powerful, although it's generally held to be the mark of the very greatest witches and wizards that have been known to produce wandless magic of very high quality. As the Native American animagi and potion makers demonstrated, wandless magic can attain great complexity, but charms and transfiguration are a very difficult one without the wand.
And speaking of wands in America, I'm not going to get too much into it because we're going to talk about it in the Ilvermorny episode. Mm-hmm. But like it's so interesting to see the difference of like North American magic that we are reading about and learning about, and everything we know from Harry Potter and everything in England, in Europe, that even their wand, like how they use their wands like growing up is different.
Yeah.
Because at Ilvermorny, they aren't allowed to take them home during the summer. They have to leave their wand at school.
That's crazy to me.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And they get their wand, like they go to Ilvermorny and then they get their
it
wand there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Fun fact in case you guys didn't know that.
Right. So you can see, like, I bet you know, when, you know, Europeans come over, the muggles come over and they like see the medicine men and stuff, you can just imagine them getting like scared or wanting to like use them, and
Yeah.
only if
Harness
it's nice,
their power.
only if it's good magic and not that black magic or whatever.
Yeah.
Stupid. But Megan, as far as Salem Witch Trials goes, she says, this makes me think of Gwendolyn the Weird, who allowed herself to get caught 47 times because she would cast a spell to make the flames tickle her, and she enjoyed it. In Harry's third year, he had to write an essay for history and magic called Witch Burning in the 14th Century was completely pointless. Discuss. Because magic, duh.
All right.
Thus ends my rambling, and I feel like I've literally talked all day because I taught all day and then I did this. So teach me something.
So I feel like I have a lot to say, and I'm going to apologize now if I get anything incorrect. Please be nice to me in correcting me. So first I want to just read more about the magic and everything from Pottermore and that same article. So the link is a history of magic in North America, and it's broken up. The first section that Tiffany read was the 14th century to the 17th century. And then the biggest section is the 17th century and beyond. And then then there's Rappaport's Law, which Katie is going to talk about. I'm going to briefly mention it. And then 1920s with Wizarding America. It's just so fascinating. So I'm going to read from it. So I don't know why I want to say magique. We are in America.
We don't care.
As nomad Europeans began to immigrate to the New World, more witches and wizards of European origin also came to settle in America. So like their nomad counterparts, they had a variety of reasons for leaving their countries of origin. Some were driven by a sense of adventure, but most were running away from something, either sometimes persecution by no-mages, sometimes from a fellow witch or wizard, but also from the wizarding authorities. And so the latter sought to blend in among the increasing tide of no-mages or hide among the Native American wizarding population, who were generally welcoming and protective of their European brethren. So from the first, however, that's weird. It was clear that the New World was going to be a harsher environment for those witches and wizards than the Old World. And it says there were three main reasons for this. So first, just like the nomad counterparts, they were coming from countries that they were used to things being kind of a little bit more readily available to themselves. But now they are in a country with few amenities. So back home, they only had to visit the local apothecary to find the things that they needed for potions. But here they had to forage among unfamiliar magical plants. There were no established wand makers, and there really, at this time, was no school because Isolde, who started Ilvermorny kind of by happenstance, really, which we're going to talk about. Yeah. It is of right now, I think it's just rough. This is exactly what it says. Was no more than a rough shack containing 2 teachers and 2 students. So they didn't really have anything that they were used to because Hogwarts, if you didn't know, was founded. Let me find my little article. Hogwarts was founded sometime in the 10th century, so between 1900 and 1000, essentially. So Hogwarts is like old hat. They're used to going to school there.
They have an old hat there.
Yeah, they do. So, secondly, the actions of their fellow no-mages made the non-magical population of most of the wizards' homelands look lovable. So not only had conflict developed between the immigrants and the Native American population, which struck a blow at the unity of the magical community, their religious beliefs made them deeply intolerant of any trace of magic, which we will see. So the Puritans were happy to accuse each other of occult activity on the slenderest evidence. And the New World witches and wizards were right to be extremely wary of them, which we will really find out.
Yeah.
And so the last part is probably the most dangerous problem that the encountered, like wizards encountered, while in the newly North America, which were scorers, as I believe how you pronounce it. So I'm going to talk about them.
Scorers.
It is insane. As I probably will say that word a million times.
Yeah.
So they basically filled the void that there was no law enforcement in the New World. So they were unscrupulous band of wizarding mercenaries from many foreign nationalities who were much feared, and they were brutal. They were brutal task force that they assigned themselves, basically.
Yeah.
And they were committed to hunting down not only known criminals, but anyone who might be worth some gold. And Katie interjects saying, sounds like Robin Hood, the Robin Hoods of the wizarding world, only bad.
Right.
LOL. Which is true. Like, it's scary. Because who are they to tell you what to do when they are probably thinking like, oh, I came from France, like that's my government. They're not, you know what I mean? But they're also so far away.
Right.
And you see this too in American history where the colonies kind of do their own thing because England's so far away.
Just like, my mom ain't here.
I can do what I want. Cookies for dinner? Yes, please. So they became more corrupt with time, and because they were far away from the jurisdiction of their native magical government, many indulged in a love of authority and cruelty unjustified by their mission.
Power, man, makes people psycho.
Yep.
Oy.
So these scorers enjoyed bloodshed and torture, and they even went so far as trafficking their fellow wizards.
Sounds like snatchers.
Mm-hmm. So their numbers grew, and there was even evidence that they would try and pass no-mages off as wizards to collect rewards from gullible non-magic members of the community.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, any way to get their money.
Any way to get a galleon.
Well, I don't know if galleons is what they use.
Whatever, it's gold.
So after the Salem Witch trials, when MACUSA was finally founded, their first task actually was to put those scorers on trial because they betrayed their own kind. So again, Megan's going to go more into MACUSA, but I'm going to still talk about scorers a little bit. So the most notorious scorers eluded justices and vanished permanently into the no magic world. Except it says no magic community is what I wrote. Oh. So some married no mages and had families. And I thought this was super interesting. So they would remove their magical children if they had them to maintain their cover. And they literally said they like winnowed them, like WINN, like OWED or something like that. And so I had to look it up.
What does it mean?
So basically, like, you know how in my mind it's similar to when you have a squib and you would try to like either send them away or whatever. So like they removed their children from their family. So they like, I had Billy and Sue as kids, and Billy turned out to be magical. Bye. I'm guessing that's how it went.
Holy mackerel.
But I wonder, like, did they Avada them? Hopefully not. But if they're truly those notorious scorers, or whatever.
I think they're scours.
And they enjoyed the blood. Like, I don't think they would, you know, they're trying to keep their cover.
Yeah.
So then the vengeful scourers cast out from their people. They passed their convictions about magic and the fact that witches and wizards needed to be exterminated to their descendants. So they passed that on, which is crazy. Like, that the hate can go on for years. Because, so we see Rappaport's law, which Katie's going to talk about this more. But that's basically, the law itself is the fact that it is illegal for witches and wizards to interact at all unless it's absolutely necessary with no mages. But it has to do with Bartholomew Barebones, who is a scorer descendant. And then, I don't know if he is related to Mary Lou Barebones.
Oh, guaranteed.
I'm assuming yes, because you see her as the Salem, what does she call her? Second Salem Church or something like that. And Fantastic Beasts. Yeah. So my mind, like, reading this, I was like, what?
Oh my gosh.
Hey, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. And so basically, I'm going to read the end of the article for this section. It says American magical historian Theophilus Abbott had identified several such families, each with a deep belief in magic and a great hatred of it. It may be partly due to the anti-magic beliefs and activities of the descendants of Scorer families that North American no-mages often seemed harder to fool and hoodwink on the subject of magic than many other populations. This has had far-reaching repercussions on the way the American wizarding community is governed. And then Megan comes in saying, so many names we know. Abbott, ? Barebones, ? So cool. All right. So I'm going to read verbatim my notes right here.
I'll do it. Chill it.
It's Salem time, witches.
Do you get it?
Katie wrote in her little notes going, lol, nice, which is just LOL. So I'm going to talk about the information from Pottermore first. And then I will get into the actual historical stuff from real-time life. So it's from I don't know why I keep wanting to say this. I keep wanting to say it's 1962, and it's 1692 to 1693. At least 2 known scourers. What are we calling them? Scourers. Among the so-called Puritan judges. They were paying off feuds that had developed while in America. So many of the dead were indeed witches, but they were innocent of the accused crimes. And the others were no-mages that just got caught up in the general hysteria and bloodshed, unfortunately. So the immediate effect was to cause many witches and wizards to flee the New World and many more to decide against locating there. Which led to an interesting variations, like in the magical population. I was going to say a different word, I think, of North America compared to Europe, Asia, and Africa. So until the 20th century, there were fewer witches and wizards in America's general population than those other continents. So purebloods rarely left for America because they were well informed about the going-ons from, I don't know, however they learned things. Sorry, that makes no sense.
They talk to each other, you know.
Yes,
but
yes.
I wouldn't want to go either.
But basically, so since they knew all of the stuff that was going on in America or the New World, a lot of them didn't come purebloods. So therefore, there's a higher percentage of no-mage-born witches and wizards in the New World than anywhere else, which I was like, that's super interesting. And Katie even says, this is a kind of crazy cool, although do you think this might mean there's a higher rate of obscurals in America?
Probably.
I would think so.
Uh-huh.
Because it's so, I think because they're so strict with their laws, first of all, about being so secretive and having no communication with no mages, unless it's like, unless it's absolutely necessary, but also because of their tragic history, which Europe still has it, but their laws are more lax than America's. But I wouldn't be surprised if the obscurals are more so higher in America.
Yeah. No, when did the witch trials in Europe end? Because that could have like a lot to do with like people wanting to hide or pushing their magic down in America.
I want to say they started in the 15th century.
Okay.
And I want to say they ended in the 18th century. Because I was trying to like also look that up just for reference. Mm-hmm. So they peaked especially from the mid 15th century, which is the 1400s, to the mid 18th century, which is the 1700s. So that makes sense time wise. You know,
Yeah.
Most executions in Europe for witchcraft were from 1580 to 1650. Is what this. While this is a quote from. I'm still talking from that history of magic in North America.
Yeah.
It says, while these witches and wizards often went on to marry and found their own all magical families, the pure blood ideology that has dogged much of Europe's magical history has gained far less traction in America. And then Megan comments on this saying, this kind of surprises me because of how anti-no-mage America is. If there are so if there are more nomad-borns here than anywhere else, why are they so unwavering in their communication laws with them? Seems backwards. Though clearly based on history, I can understand it because of the witch trials. And then Katie says, I agree. It's probably based on history. It's sad, but the community suffered such a blow. They're kind of blinded by their fear.
Yeah.
And I agree to that, but also, like, I don't know if they've read, like, what happened with the reason for the law, like Rappaport's law, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Which is why they, like, I'm kind of trying to think of, like, what year it was. Because it was after the so that was made in 1790. So with the witch trials, and that was decimating the country, and then with this law and everything that happened with that, and Makuza's, like, not floundering, but, like, what happened in, like, until it became a permanent residence in New York. Like, I think that all of these things were just adding to being like, you know, we really got to keep, like, an eye on this and, like, keep them separated. And it's just even seeing how Europe progressed versus America did. Like, we've always been a little bit more conservative in a lot of ways.
Do you think, like, because of the types of, I don't know, more conservative people, like, came here?
Yes.
Or do you think, but were they more radical because they were trying to do their own thing?
I think Puritans, we were founded on them. You know what I mean? With those thoughts of, like...
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of why we're so different. That's just my theory. But yeah. So the most significant effect from the Salem Witch trials and everything and all of this was the creation of MACUSA, which stands for the Magical Congress of the United States of America, which I said is an interesting name because I thought of this. Writing these notes, I was like, that's interesting that when J.K. Rowling was doing all of this Ilvermorny stuff, and it even says in here that, yes, the Magical Congress of the United States of America, and this all started in 1693. I'm going to keep
2018.
Keep switching the letters, the numbers.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So MACUSA was created in 1693. That's when the Salem Witch trials ended. But I find it interesting that it's called the Magical Congress of the United States of America because we were not called the United States of America in 1693. That happened many a year later.
So do you think wizards were in for, like, when we called ourselves, like, the United States of America and created our Congress and all of that?
I don't know.
Since this came first?
Could be.
Why not?
No, I was trying to think of, like, with the law and everything of not talking to no
because we have Kingsley.
It was in 1776,
you know,
by the way, when we first started the ball rolling of America being separate from England with the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the American Revolution and all of that stuff. And so, yeah. I just was like, that's interesting that it's called that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm also going to talk. So we're going to talk about Salem, but I want to talk about some things that predated Salem a little bit in the New World.
Okay.
So with Connecticut, between 1647 and 1697, about 3 dozen people, it's like the exact number, is disputed, as many court records have been lost, but they were charged with witchcraft. 11 were executed, all by hanging. 9 of the 11 were women. The 2 men who were executed along with their wives. So that's interesting.
Do you think they were just like witch families then if they were married, you know?
It talks about Connecticut's second executed witch, Mary Johnson, was sent to the gallows in 1648 after having been detained and tortured for years, according to ConnecticutHistory.org. And then under duress, she admitted to familiarity with the devil and cleanliness. Well, except it doesn't say that. It says uncleanness with men and devils. Thereby thereby providing the first recorded confession of witchcraft in the American colonies. And I think you see this, and we'll see even later on, and we know from other types of, like in real life, where people will just admit to something because they keep asking and they keep saying, like, you did this, you did this. And like, you can almost plant the idea in someone's head, and they've seen that happen. So
False confessions.
Yes. So before even the Salem witch trials, in 1688, a woman named Mary Glover was hanged in Boston. Cotton Mather was involved in the case, and he published a book called Memorable Providences Relating to Witchcraft and Possessions. And he was convinced of the reality of witchcraft and became involved in the events in Salem. And so he warned of the dubious value of spectral evidence. And we'll see this later on. But then those concerns were unheard during the trial, like all of the trials. And I said, just because this was interesting, I thought, so his name is Cotton Mather, and just cool facts, his father, who was the president of Harvard College, his name was Increase Mather, and I just thought that was an interesting fact.
That makes me think of Eminem.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing when I was reading this. I was like, oh, I wonder, but his last name is Mathers, Marshall Mathers, if you don't know what Eminem's real name was. So I got some topics from history.com.
Okay.
Talking about the Salem witch trials. So we began in the summer of 1692.
You're never going to get it right.
I'm never going to get it right. And then I did say the European witch hunts began in the 15th century, just for reference, and ended roughly in the 18th century. So I knew I had those in my notes.
Oh my God.
So a group of girls in Salem Village, Massachusetts, claimed to be possessed by the devil and accused several local women of witchcraft. So a wave of hysteria, and that began, I want to say that January, February of that year. Mm-hmm. So a wave of hysteria spread throughout the colony, and then a special court was convened in Salem to hear the cases. So Bridget Bishop was the first to be hanged that June, followed by 18 people after her. They were hanged at Salem's Gallows Hill, and then I was actually talking about this last night on a Google Hangout, except it's not Google Hangout anymore because we use Zoom.
It's a Zoom.
But I watched this YouTuber, and her channel's called Ask a Mortician. So it's a little morbid because she's a mortician. She owns a funeral home or funeral business.
I mean, it's a necessary job. But.
Yes. So she kind of talks about, obviously, like the death and dying and like more things, but she also dives deep into talking about like famous corpses and other kind of ghostliest stories. But she has
what famous corpse? Like just a famous person? That's
like corpses that are like you've heard of them before. Like she did an episode on who did Madonna play in that one movie, the Don't Cry for Me Argentina. I'm sorry that I don't know this woman's name, but she in Argentina like was married to the president, like that person in real life. Her corpse, she has a whole story because it like went places. There's another one like that. I remember seeing the girl, a little girl who they're like her eyes move, but it's really like the way that like the sun's hitting her or something. But she has a couple videos on famous corpses. But she did a video. Her name's Caitlin Doty, I believe, about Salem and Gallows Hill. So if you guys want to see it, I can put the YouTube link up there. Again, she could be a little morbid because she is a mortician. I just find it fascinating and all of this stuff. And she was the one I was telling you about. She did a episode about there was a ship that was trying to like cut through Canada way back in the day. Remember there's that show that you guys are watching. And so she does stuff like mysteries too that she talks about. So she talking about how essentially they were saying that everyone was hung at Gallows Hill, but they actually think it was Proctor's Ledge because it makes more sense. And there's like this whole project. So she talks more about it and talks kind of like the backstory of like Giles Corey. And I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. So it's just it's less than 10 minutes. I find it fascinating. I like her content. Yeah. And so more than 150 men, women, and children were accused of witchcraft in this time. So the trials and the hangings, they stopped. Well, the hanging stopped. The trials continued a little bit. stopped September 1692 when public opinion soon turned against all of it. So 9-year-old Elizabeth Betty Paris, 11-year-old Abigail Williams, they began to have fits, violent contortions, and uncontrollable outbursts of screaming. So a local doctor basically diagnosed them with bewitchment, and the other girls in the community began to act the same way. And then from this history.org article, there was a journal, Science Magazine, in 1976 that published a study that basically kind of said there's a fungus, ergot, I think is how you say it, which is found in rye, wheat, and other cereals, which toxicologists say can cause symptoms such as delusions, vomiting, and muscle spasms.
Interesting.
So it may be able to explain what could have happened to those girls all those years ago, which it makes sense, a scientific reason of why they were they were just sick.
What's the science behind that?
So other women, like the other girls that, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, we're saying like you're a witch. What am I trying to say?
Accusing.
Accusing is the word I'm looking for. So there's Ann Putnam Jr., Mercy Lewis, Elizabeth Hubbard, Mary Walcott, and Mary Warren. So the girls accused Tituba, who was a Caribbean slave that the Paris's owned, a homeless beggar named Sarah Good, and the poor elderly Sarah Osborne of witchcraft. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of Sarahs. There's even more Sarahs later on. So, and I just thought this was interesting that a way to prove that they were bewitched, they would could make a witch cake, is what it was called. So it was made, just gross.
Oh, give me this recipe.
So it's made from rye and the urine of the two original girls, so Betty Paris and Abigail Williams. And in those days, people believed that if you suspected a person was bewitched, you could make a witch cake and feed it to the dog. And if the dog then behaved like the afflicted person, it was proof that the witchcraft was the cause. And in this case, the dog was given the cake, and its behavior afterwards was said to be like that of the afflicted girls. So this was taken as evidence,
vomiting and stuff,
I guess, that witchcraft was indeed responsible, which blows my mind. Like, it makes sense that if you are ill and say, like those reports said, it could be in the rye. So not only this stuff could be in your urine and in the rye, and you're making cake and feeding it to a dog, like the dog is essentially could be getting a double dose.
Just regular cake. You're making a cake.
Well, okay, I don't think you're allowed to say that word. But isn't it called a urinal cake? Is that like a thing?
I don't know.
And Katie says, sometimes the things in the past really like boggle me. Yikes. And so they were brought before Jonathan Corwin and John Hawthorne, and Megan writes, Paisha, who is a listener and a supporter on Patreon, she said her wife is a distantly related to him, I believe, or like a direct descendant, something like that. She was telling us last night, which is so weird. It's like crazy that we could be like related to these people. Anybody could,
Yes.
So they questioned Sarah Osborne and Sarah Good. Both denied their guilt, but Tituba confessed. So she probably confessed because she had hoped that she'd be spared, and if so, she was correct, because while she was imprisoned, she was not executed, and she didn't die in prison. And so once the hysteria was over, she kind of like withdrew her confession. And there's not really much known about what happened to her afterwards. Obviously, she's not alive now. But I just thought that was cool. Like that, yeah. I mean, it just worked out that way kind of thing. And so Sarah Osborne died while in prison. And then Sarah Good was hanged in July 1692. And then Tituba claimed that there were other witches acting alongside of her. So as hysteria spread, a number of others were accused, including Martha Corey and Rebecca Nurse, who both were regarded as upstanding members of the church and community. And even Sarah Good's 4-year-old daughter was accused, which is like crazy. Several accused witches confessed and named others, and soon the trials began to overwhelm the local justice system.
Several accused witches confessed.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think that they're thinking like, it's better if I just say yes, because I'm not going to like, the other ones are going to they won't believe me anyways if I deny it, which is true.
So maybe if I tell the truth, they'll let me off easy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That would be my thinking.
Yeah.
So as I said before, Bridget Bishop was the first conviction on June 2nd. She was hanged 8 days later with 5 more people that were hanged. I don't like saying hanged, and I know it's
correct.
Proper, whatever. That July, 5 in August, and then 8 more in September. And then July 19th, Sarah Good, Elizabeth Howe, Susan, except this is Susanna, Martin, Sarah Wilds, and Rebecca Nurse were all hanged. And so Rebecca Nurse was an old lady of good character, and the jury acquitted her first, but then the judge, William Stoughton, is that how you would say that? Invited the jury to reconsider because of public outcry, which sometimes I feel like we see nowadays, you know? Where public outcry is so, not that it's not justified sometimes, but I'm just saying.
Speaking of the judge, someone on Instagram just said that the judge's house in Salem just went up for sale.
John Proctor's house.
Oh, okay.
Just went up for sale.
Sorry.
He was accused. So the judge invited the jury to reconsider because of public outcry, and the girls who were accused, while she was acquitted, they had fits or fainted, still in the courtroom.
Yeah.
And so this time she was found guilty. So she was 71 years old, hard of hearing. So it was difficult.
71? That's
yes.
a feat.
Well, so
back then.
your sister emailed. She was texting you this, and you sent me what she was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I always liked, not that I don't trust her sister, but I like to fact check stuff.
Yeah.
No, she was 71 years old. So she's hard of hearing. And so she had a difficult time answering questions because she couldn't hear correctly. And so I said, thanks to Ashley Boo Rook for giving us some information.
Shout out Ashley Boo Rook.
You the bee's knees, girl. Except I said lady because you's a lady. Not that you're not a girl. We're all
She's
girls.
a lady.
And then August 5th, George Burroughs, Martha Carrier, George Jacobs, John and Elizabeth Proctor, and John Willard were all tried and found guilty. And then all but Elizabeth Proctor were hanged on the 19th of August.
Hanged is correct.
I just don't like it. So John Proctor was 60 years old, was outspoken about the trials because he bravely defended his wife. He was accused. So... because she was accused first, and he was like, she's not a witch. They're not real. I'm assuming is probably what he said, you know? So he wrote a letter to the Boston clergy denouncing the unfairness of the trials, but unfortunately did not save his life. And then I thought this was interesting. So he said the Lord's Prayer, which is Our Father, without making mistakes while he was hanging, which is shocking. And should have shocked them. And I think it did, and that started really what turned a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because witches were not supposed to be able to do that.
Right.
So he sowed the seeds of doubt in many people's minds. Ooh. And then there was a movie I just watched on Netflix called The Witch, I believe. And in it, it's a family, and I don't know if they're in Salem, but they might be around there. But all it has to do is the mom and dad, and then they have 5 kids. Okay. And their oldest daughter, it essentially kind of revolves around her, where she takes her baby brother, or I think it's a boy, from her mom just because she's doing something. Her mom's gardening. I don't know. It's in this time period. Yeah. But she turns around for 1 second and goes back, and the baby's gone. So it goes into the mom blames her, and they're crying witch, and then the brother goes.
Why does it always gotta go to witch?
Well, because it does end with her
what is
naked in
again?
A field with other witches. It's called The Witch.
So she is a witch.
Very small.
If she wasn't, she is now. And they have a goat that's a goat is a sign of the devil, I guess, or a sign. It's a witchcraft thing, and it's a good movie. It's kind of creepy. But part of it, the old other brother that's younger than her, but older than the 2 youngest kids that are twins. Mm-hmm. They go off to find food in the forest, and she comes back, the brother's missing. And then he starts having, he starts having fits, and they're trying to pray, the family around him. And the 2 youngest ones can't say the Our Father. And they're it's a sign of being a witch, and the little girl is it's because of her, pointing at her sister. Sorry, I kind of just ruined the whole thing, but it's a good movie.
What's it called again? I did not hear you.
I think it's just called The Witch.
It's on Netflix?
Yes. And it's set in that time period. I really like movies that are set in this time period. But that made me think of that. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And fun fact that John Proctor's house is for sale. And it's only $600,000.
That is not that much.
And I was reading about it.
For something like that, that's not that much. I mean, it's a lot of money, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. And it says
I probably shouldn't do this right now.
it's located in present-day Peabody, Massachusetts. It was built in 1638. It has 6 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. The house has been modernized, but parts of the original structure, such as the wooden beams, are still visible. The home is for sale because the owner recently died, so rest in peace for that person.
R.I.P. Pour one out.
Yeah. And the Historical Society at in Peabody, it was like, for it to come on the market, it's very uncommon, and we're really excited, which is true. You know, that's pretty cool.
Camilla Forever says at the end of the movie, it says a lot of the dialogue comes directly from the journals of that time.
Yes. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's a good movie. I recommend.
I need to watch it. What's it rated?
Probably R.
Oh, because she's naked.
You don't really see anything, I don't think. I don't remember, but it's like scary. It can be scary.
It's scary? Okay.
All right, so some also died in prison. And then one guy, Giles Corey, was pressed to death on September 19th. So he refused to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty, and he refused to be put on trial. And I believe, like, if you don't enter a plea at all, like, you can't be put on trial. Don't quote me if I'm wrong, but I believe I read that. So
hold on. This pressed to death thing makes me think of something that I saw. So oftentimes to get them to confess, they would use leg clamps, which basically looks like a bear trap with screws. Mm-hmm. So they would just keep screwing it deeper and deeper into your legs until you would be like, yeah,
crying
I'm
uncle
a witch.
Kind of thing. Yeah. So they basically, I believe, put like a big board on you, and they put weights. And so the entire time,
They just keep.
yeah, well, until you confess.
And he didn't.
So, what's
died?
interesting about him? So they were like, "What's your plea? What's your plea?" And all he would say the entire time is, "More weight, more weight."
Oh,
Yeah.
oi.
And so on Drunk History, another video you guys can watch, Alan McLeod, if you guys don't know what Drunk History is,
It's great.
it's funny and historical. So the guy takes someone, they get like rip-roaring drunk, but he like gives them a piece of history, and it's true history.
Yeah.
But they have to like drunkenly tell the story, and then they have actors reenact it.
Famous.
But, like saying it how the drunk person's talking about it.
Like if the drunk person burps as they're like narrating, the actor will have to pretend to burp.
It's great. So he talks about Giles Corey and his curse and all of that fun stuff with him being pressed.
I need to watch that one, and you put the link.
I did.
Cool.
So then finally on September 22nd, Martha Corey, Mary East, Alice Parker, Mary Parker, Ann Updater, and Wilmot Reed, Margaret Scott, and Samuel Waddell were all hanged as well. Just a lot of people. And most of them are women, by the way, if you didn't catch that. So Ann Putnam was a main accuser, and this is most I cannot talk.
Elmo.
Most of those who died, why?
Because it's Friday night and the feeling's right.
So she accused most of those who died, and so I've read in some places that she accused 62 people and saw 17 die, and another where like of the 19 people who were legitimately killed, 11 of them were hung because of her stories and courtroom dramatics.
Dear Anne, how do you live with yourself?
And part of it too, like I guess her father was very involved in like calling out people for witchcraft as well. But she was one of the only accusers to apologize later on in like the early 1700s. And then she died in 1716 at the age of 37. Just fun fact. Or not so fun fact because, you know, she was dead.
I don't know if I want to pour one out. I don't think I will.
Oh, okay. So then October 1692, William Phipps forbade the court to allow spectral evidence, which is evidence based on visions and dreams. And because I guess like one of them said that, I believe it was Betty, if she was the first girl that passed out. And they kind of talk about that a little bit in the Crucible, which is also something I'm going to talk about. where like she's like, I had a dream and she did this, and like, you know, talking about bird, like they were a yellow bird or something like that, or a dog. Like, it's just crazy interesting. So essentially they're like, you can't, because you could just say whatever you want and be like, I had a dream and it was this. Like, that's not, I need hard evidence, you know?
Evidence.
So he then dissolved the special court, but then he had set up to try supposed witches, and the trials then continued just in an ordinary court, which was formed in November of 1692. But the last trials for witchcraft in Salem were held in January of 1693. And there were 3 more people that were convicted, but they were reprieved by the governor. And in May of 1693, Governor Phipps pardoned all those in prison convicted or awaiting trial.
Sheesh.
Yes. And so then in 1696, some jurors admitted that they had made a terrible mistake, like in saying that these people were witches.
Yeah.
And then in
That is 19.
Yeah, Is it? I don't know. No, I think it's supposed to be 1697. I did it so much, guys, that let me read it. Okay, so in 1697, Massachusetts General Court declared a day of fasting for the tragedy of the Salem witch trials. And in 1711, the Massachusetts colony passed a legislation restoring the good names of the condemned and providing financial restitution to their heirs. And then Katie comments, it's crazy they went through all of this hysteria and were just like, we made a mistake. It makes you think of all the times in history these kinds of things happened. And we look back at it now and think, what were they thinking? Makes you wonder what people will think of today in 50 years, 100 years, etc. Which is true, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's so insane that... And it happens so quickly. Like, in the span of June, July, August, September, 4 months, all those people were killed for nothing.
Yeah.
And I've said it before where I think that, you know... You made someone mad and all of a sudden, like, they're a witch.
Yeah.
And how can you prove then? Like, once you were accused, like, there's no going back from that.
Think about how far we've come now, though. Like, if you, like literally, if you accuse someone of being a witch, people are like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's how, I mean, but if you accuse people of, like, other things,
it's crazy.
Then people lose their minds.
I want to talk about, before we move on to the curse ball, I believe is my next segment.
It is.
I want to talk about Giles Corey's curse.
Do it.
So, as I said, 1711, they passed a legislation clearing the names of the accused, including Giles and Martha Corey, paid restitution for their imprisonment and deaths. But it has long since been rumored that Corey placed a curse on Salem and its sheriff during his torture by shouting, "Damn you, I curse you," and Salem. At the sheriff before he died. And then 4 years after Corey's death, Sheriff Corwin died suddenly of a heart attack at just 30 years old. Wow.
Whoa.
And local legends suggest that Corey not only cursed Corwin, but every Salem sheriff since 1692. And in the 1970s, after Salem Sheriff Robert Calhill was forced to retire early due to a stroke, heart attack, and rare blood condition, he looked into the history of the sheriff's office and described in the book Cursed in New England. And this is a quote from it. It says, about 300 years later, in 1978, Robert Calhill, while in office, suffered a rare blood disease, a heart attack, and stroke. Doctors could not find the cause of his afflictions. He was forced to retire as sheriff of Essex County and as master and keeper of the jail. Today, he lives in Florida. And he notes that the sheriff before him also contracted a serious blood ailment while in office. It forced him to retire. He, in turn, had inherited the post from his father after the elder man died of a heart attack while serving as sheriff. The previous sheriff had suffered a heart attack as well. So have all the others as far back as I could trace, he says. And the 2 men who have followed me have had awful lot of legal trouble.
Dang.
Crazy. So he believes that when the sheriff's office was moved from Salem to the new prison in Middleton in 1991, it broke the curse and spared the future sheriffs. Since the move, no sheriffs have been diagnosed with any heart conditions or blood ailments. And locals also believe that Corey's ghost still haunts the area around Howard Street Cemetery, as it is now known, and his ghost is often seen before and after a terrible event happens in the town.
I believe it.
And then this says this is the historyofmassachusetts.org, by the way, is where I'm finding this. So one such occasion happened shortly before the Great Salem Fire of 1914 when witnesses saw a ghostly figure of an old man floating through the cemetery. The fire actually started near the area of Gallows Hill and Proctor's Ledge, where Corey's wife Martha and 18 other people were hanged for witchcraft before it spread and destroyed much of the town. Just so interesting.
Oy.
You know what I just thought of?
Yeah.
We should do our own personal ghost stories episode.
Oh, geez. I'm okay with that. That could have been a Felix Files.
Still could be.
All right, so my next bit I want to talk about is The Crucible. So if you guys don't know what that is a play that was written by Arthur Miller in 1953.
That one's a 19.
Yes. And fun fact, he also wrote Death of a Salesman. And it's funny to me that The Crucible has always stood out for me as something when I read for school, and I always really enjoyed it.
See, I never really had anything to do with it.
So we had to read that, and we also had to read Death of a Salesman. And I'm not always, I'm not super into reading plays.
Yeah.
One, because you're meant to watch them.
Yeah.
But these are two plays that I actually really, really enjoyed. And I think with The Crucible, at least, I really enjoyed it because I like things from this time period. I like stuff set then. And Death of a Salesman was also really good.
See, I've never.
And I want to say
That either.
it was good. I really enjoyed both of them. So The Crucible is based on the Salem Witch trials, but it's like more dramatized and partially fictionalized. And it was wrote as a metaphor for government persecution of suspected communists.
Interesting.
Which I guess he was. He even was like a couple years later after this, he had to go and like testify in front of like Congress or someone. Again, sorry if that's wrong what he did, but
Makuza?
sure. And so it won the Tony Award in 1953 for Best Play. So basically, I wanted to tell you guys what it is a little bit. I literally just copy and pasted the plot line from
In the
Spark Notes.
Puritan New England town of Salem, Massachusetts,
Do you want to read it?
a group of girls goes dancing in the forest with a black slave named Tituba. While dancing, they are caught by the local minister, Reverend Paris.
So out of the girls that are there, two of them, one is Paris's daughter Betty, and the other one is his niece, I believe, Abigail Williams. So these kind of are some of these names, at least they're based on real life, like the girls that this actually happened to. And so Betty falls into a coma, and people are gathered at his house because they're rumors of witchcraft are filling the town because they think that the girls were performing witchcraft in the forest. So they send for the Reverend Hale, who's an expert on witchcraft. Paris questions Abigail, his niece, and she admits to doing nothing more than dancing. So while he's trying to calm her down, Abigail talks to the other girls, telling them not to admit to anything because they were legitimately practicing witchcraft, because, it all has to do with John Proctor. So she worked for John Proctor in his house. Mm-hmm. Then his wife, who's Elizabeth Proctor, fired her because Abigail and John Proctor, who was a local farmer, they were having an affair.
Ugh.
So she was trying to perform witchcraft, I believe, to get rid of Elizabeth so she can be with John.
Interesting.
Yes. And so we see Abigail still desires Proctor. He fends her off and tells her to end her foolishness with the girls. So then Betty wakes up, begins screaming. Much of the crowd rushes upstairs, gathers into her bedroom. They argue whether or not she's bewitched. And then a separate argument between Proctor, Paris, the argumentative Giles Corey, and the wealthy Thomas Putnam soon ensues. This dispute centers on money and land deeds, and it suggests that a deep fault lines run through the Salem community. So the guys argue. Reverend Hale arrives and examines Betty while Proctor departs. Hale quizzes Abigail about the girl's adventures in the forest, and he grows suspicious of her behavior and demands to speak to Tituba. So they interrogate. Tituba confesses, talking about she's communing with the devil, all this other stuff. And so soon Abigail joins her, confessing, having seen the devil conspiring, cavorting with her townsfolk. Betty joins them in naming people. And soon the town is thrown into an uproar.
Can you imagine living there at this time?
No, because I'd be terrified. Also because I'm like weird, so like...
I wouldn't want to like talk to anyone.
No.
Which would probably get you accused.
Yeah. So about a week later, alone in their farmhouse outside of town, John and Elizabeth Proctor discuss the going-on trials and the escalating number of townsfolk who have been accused of being witches. So she urges her husband to denounce Abigail as a fraud, and he refuses and becomes jealous. She becomes jealous, accusing him of still harboring feelings for her. Mary Warren, their servant in one of Abigail's circle, returns from Salem with news that Elizabeth has been accused of witchcraft, but the court did not pursue the accusation. Mary is sent to bed. John and Elizabeth continue their argument, only to be interrupted by a visit from Reverend Hale. And then, while they discuss matters, Giles, Corey, and Francis Nurse come to the Proctor home with news that their wives have been arrested. So Giles Corey's wife, I believe, is Martha. Francis Nurse's wife is Rebecca. And like, obviously, Giles Corey's a real name. John Proctor, a real person.
Right.
Francis Nurse is Rebecca Nurse's husband's name in real life. And so officers of the court suddenly arrive to arrest Elizabeth. And so Proctor browbeats Mary, insisting that she must go to Salem and expose Abigail and the other girl as frauds. So they go to court, and the judge that Mary says that she'll tell them that she's like the girls are lying, but Danforth is suspicious of Proctor's motives and tells Proctor that truthfully that Elizabeth is pregnant and will be spared for a time. So Proctor persists in his charge, convincing Danforth to allow Mary to testify. She tells them that the court's lying, or tells them that the court that the girls are lying. Then the girls are brought in, but they're able to turn the tables on Mary and accuse her. And so Proctor is furious. So he confesses to his affair with Abigail and accuses her of being motivated by jealousy of his wife. And this is one of the parts that I loved reading this. So he literally says, he's like, ask my wife. She never lies. She'll tell you the truth.
Oh.
So they're in court.
Yeah.
He says, I had an affair. This is why it's happening. Yada, yada, yada. Ask my wife.
Yada, yada, yada. Can you
Basically.
yada, yada, yada that? George
Sure.
Costanza would.
Sure. So the judge gets Elizabeth. They ask her. She's thinking she's protecting her husband, doesn't know what he said, lies about it, so says, no, he didn't have an affair with her. He's saying she never lies. She's going to tell the truth. Just ask her. She's thinking she's saving him, lies and says he never had the affair. And they're like, well, you said she never lies, so you just said all this stuff. Yes, it's so good. Sorry, you can tell I get so excited.
Can I, like, watch this somewhere?
I believe they have it because you know who played Lincoln in that movie?
Oh.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel
So I just
Day-Lewis.
got really excited. Plays
I enjoy him.
John Proctor.
I enjoy him.
Yeah. So she lies, thinking she's protecting her husband's honor. So then the judge denounces Proctor as a liar because obviously he said that his wife wouldn't lie, and so now they think that she's telling the truth. So meanwhile, Abigail and the girls begin to pretend that Mary's bewitching them. So then Mary breaks down and accuses Proctor of being a witch. And of course, he rages against her and against the court. He's arrested, and then it's just crazy. So then Hale quits the proceedings. The summer passes, autumn arrives. The witch trials have caused unrest in neighboring towns, and Danforth grows nervous. Abigail has run away, taking all of her Paris's money with her. Hale, who has lost faith in the court, begs the accused witches to confess falsely in order to save their lives, but they refuse. Danforth, however, has an idea. He asks Elizabeth to talk John into confessing, and she agrees. Conflicted but desiring to live, John agrees to confess, and the officers of the court rejoice. They rejoice.
I like to
Rejoice.
When I'm happy, I like to rejoice.
So, and I believe like he even writes everything down, but he refuses to incriminate anyone else. And when when the court insists that the confession must be made public, and I believe they even say like on the door of like the court or on the door of the church, or on the door of something. He's like, no, he's like, because he knows he's lying by doing that. So he grows angry, tears it up, and retracts his admission of guilt. So despite Hale's desperate pleas, Proctor goes to the gallows with the others, and the witch trials reach their awful conclusion. So like, it's a little bit more fantasized, and I know they changed the ages too of everyone, because at the time I think, and because Abigail in the play is a little bit older, but in real life she was like 11 or 12, and then Proctor was in his 60s, so they changed their ages a little bit, obviously. It's just, it's crazy. It's really good. If you guys have never watched The Crucible or read it or anything, I recommend. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully I did it justice talking about the Salem Witch Trials. Hopefully you weren't bored.
So into it. I loved it.
And I just want to do a little bit before we go into our next episode. Megan and Katie are going to dive deep into MACUSA and to like past all of this, like what happens after the Salem Witch Trials in America with the magical history and normal history and everything.
Yeah.
But I just a little timeline wise of things. So we know the International Statute of Secrecy starts 1692, Salem Witch Trial 1692 to 93. MACUSA was created in 1693, and then the Ministry of Magic wasn't founded until 1707.
Sucks to suck.
I was like shocked. Which is just fun fact. These are all things I found from Pottermore, by the way. But yeah, I mean,
the things you can find when you search.
Do you have any thoughts on the Salem Witches?
I just feel so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And to think of being those jurors and you let that happen, or even the judges and all those people that you can like accused.
Honestly, I would never want to be on a jury.
No.
That's not my
my jam. I'm not here to judge people.
Amen.
It's just I just find it so interesting, especially because they're real people, and I try to to look more into people. So hopefully you find it interesting. But check out these videos. The one with about the Salem Witches and Giles Corey. Both of them are great, with Ask a Mortician and Drunk History. Also, if you just want to watch Drunk History, it genuinely is really funny.
And you learn a lot.
Yeah.
In a very funny way.
Yes. Which is something that's great, you know?
Yes.
Like, that's how with Hamilton, I learned so much, because not only am I listening to the stuff, and not, obviously, the play is not 100% factual, because, like, the one song has to do with, like, how Elizabeth Schuyler, or Angelica Schuyler says, like, she's, like, her father has no sons, which isn't true. He just forgot that he had sons when he was writing it. But it makes me want to, like, look more stuff up, and then I get, like, super into, like, an internet hole where I'm, like, clicking the links and reading all the stuff. Gosh, I love history like this. I just find it fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to say? Are we still live?
Uh-huh.
Are people like Sarah's insane?
Probably. Oh, they're saying you're in your element because you're a Ravenclaw.
I don't know what that means.
It's the claw of a raven. Just one claw.
The Ravenclaw.
Just a claw. A single.
Just one little claw.
Just one claw. I have but one claw, but beware.
Beware of the claw.
Do you know what that movie's?
I have no idea. Never heard of it.
Fern Gully.
Oh, I don't.
Shout out to Fern Gully. It's like 40 minutes long.
I don't think I've ever seen that movie, although I believe it's on Netflix.
Okay, you need to watch Fern Gully.
Maybe. Also, with that movie, The Witch on Netflix, the father was in, what's that show that everyone likes to watch that's British?
The Office?
No, it's nowadays. It's ending. Game of Thrones. I don't remember who he played. Someone on the Iron Isles, I believe. I don't even know if that's what it's called. Iron Islands, maybe? Iron Islands? I don't know.
Irons.
I like to watch a show because the men are attractive.
That's neither here nor there.
No, just saying I don't pay that close. I mean, I pay attention. Regardless, Harry Potter, Wizarding World, Salem Witch Trials. Pour one out for all those poor people that passed away because of it.
It's true.
Also, so
Yeah.
out of the 19 that died, all were hanged, but Giles Corey, that were like executed because he was pressed to death, and then other people died in the prison, or some were spared eventually
Why did they choose the press for him?
because he like I don't know because
Just
they
to
were
try
I
to
think they were
torture
trying
it
to
out?
get and. I was watching a documentary about the witch trials in Europe.
Yeah.
Specifically, like, I believe in Scotland. And so if you've ever watched Outlander, and in the first season, you see Galis Duncan, who essentially, like, I think she is portrayed as a witch in the show as well, kind of. Mm-hmm. But she was a real person. And she was accused, like the first person to be accused in Scotland, I believe in Scotland, of witchcraft, which I was like, oh my gosh, Giles Corey. Not Giles Corey. Oh my gosh. Galis Duncan. I'm like, that's from Outlander. And I got really excited.
That's awesome.
But obviously you can tell I like watching things about witch hunts.
True.
Which witch is a witch? If a witch could witch, could witch.
Which one?
Witch. Witch switch. Say that 10 times fast. How do you think the segregation of race affected the segregation of the nomad? So funny you should ask this question to whomever asked this question. So when reading about this and reading about Rappaport's law, which is, it is illegal for nomads and nomads and witches and wizards
Nomads
to
and
interact.
muggles, they cannot talk.
It was repealed in, let me find the year. I have it in my other documentation. So that was repealed in, of course I don't have it up here, do I?
I don't know what you do.
1965. And so
Here comes the notebook.
I wrote it down in my section because it reminded me so much of segregation and everything. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know when it became legal for everyone to marry. So Rappaport's law repealed 1965. Okay. So interracial marriage was struck down in 1967 by the Supreme Court, and it was Loving versus Virginia.
Loving.
That was their last name.
I know. I'm just saying how appropriate.
And so, because that was my immediate thought. I was like, I want to know, like, in real life, when it became, because that's what it reminded me of so much. Where, like, if you don't know the history or the story of behind Loving versus Virginia, it was a man and wife. He was white. She was African American. And they might still be living. I could be lying, but
wow.
They just had a movie like 2 years ago come out about it.
What was it called?
Loving, I believe, is just what it was called.
Oh, okay.
I haven't watched it, but they were like arrested, like in their own home in their bed because it was illegal.
That's insane.
Yes. So, and they like went to court, obviously, and they ended up winning. So her name was Mildred. Let me try to find out what his name was. Richard.
Okay.
And so it's just it's insane to me that like
that can
any
be
type
a thing.
of marriage is illegal. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it's none of your business.
Yes. I just kind of how I feel about it. But I think that it certainly didn't aid like having the segregation of like muggles or nomads and the magical folk. Like that I don't think helped any type of segregation, like interracially.
Yeah.
Because they were so used to, you can't talk to this person or this is for us and that's for them, an us versus them kind of mentality.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I mean, I agree.
All right. Were there any of the Salem witches actual witches? Yes. What? In real life or like in Pottermore life?
Pottermore life?
Pottermore life, yes.
Right.
And then,
Real life?
I think they were just people living their life.
I think so too.
I think that in the realm of if there's real magic, that they would be able to not necessarily hide themselves more so, but like make sure that they weren't picked.
Use like confundus
Or helped maybe.
something.
And in my mind, I'd like to think that they would help those that were accused
Falsely
and innocent.
accused. Yeah, I feel that.
But that's just my
wanting. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Did Ilvermorny allow half-bloods? I'm gonna say yeah. I don't think they care.
Yeah, same.
Do you want to read the fan story?
Sure. Fan story is from Julianne Dennehy. I think I said that right. She says, I didn't read Harry Potter for the first time until I was 19 years old. Growing up, I was always reading books, especially young adult fantasy, but I never read the series. I was a huge fan of the Hunger Games, and I felt like I could be a fan of both, so I always put down the series and said I would never read it. Oh, I'm sorry. She said she couldn't be a fan of both?
Correct.
I think I read that wrong. Anywho, I had never even seen a movie until the same year I started the books. One day a coworker and a good friend of mine was telling me how she had been watching all the movies and how good they were, so I said I would watch them too. And that was the beginning of the end. I watched them all in one weekend. Holy hell. Okay. I immediately bought all 7 books, and I had completely fallen in love, and there was no looking back. This was in February of 2018.
Wow.
Hey, girl, hey. And I was...
And as I write
this in October of the same year, I have watched all the movies about a dozen times. They are my go-to. Read all the books, some multiple times, and I have done so much research on them, both canon and headcanon. I have a small Harry Potter shrine in my room, and so much more that isn't out in the open. And I have even gotten a tattoo of the Harry Potter stars. The series means so much to me. I was going through a lot of personal stuff when I opened Sorcerer's Stone, and in a way, it saved me. I am so glad I got into the series, and I am so excited to learn more about it and grow with it in my life. Also, love you guys. You're all amazing.
That's crazy.
Well,
so,
she fell in love, and she fell hard. Julianne,
you're awesome.
That is no small feat to have done what you've done. I mean, what is that? What, February to now?
And then how are you all caught up, or have you not even heard your episode yet?
Yeah.
That's great. And then when people are like, I listen to all of your, like us talking about us, not J.K. Rowling. They're like, I caught up in a week. More power to you, because I know that we are long-winded people.
Long-winded in those beginning episodes. God bless you.
Yeah. Gosh, that's crazy. And not even a whole year.
Yeah. Goodness.
Welcome to the Potter world, and we welcome you.
Yeah.
A big, warm Molly Weasley hug.
Yeah. And I'm sorry I butchered your story a little bit. I'm very tired.
No, we're no Katie. Katie. All right.
Megan.
Social media. So Swish and Flick Podcast can be found on all social medias. We're Swish and Flick Podcast on Facebook and Swish Flickcast on Twitter and Instagram. Also, make sure you head on over to YouTube and subscribe, because not only is our podcast posted there, but when we sometimes have vlogs, they're there as well. So follow us on our crazy Potter-filled adventures together. You can also join us on Patreon for exclusive access to the Felix Files, which is our bi-monthly bonus episodes, a chance to be a guest on the Felix Files, a live video chat session with us monthly on Zoom. We have giveaways and so much more. So, if that sounds like a good time, and it is, go to www.patreon.com/SwishFlickCast and choose your support level. So a shout out and a huge, huge, huge thank you to all of our current Patreons. Honestly, without you and our listeners, we would not be able to do what we do. Not every day, because we don't podcast every day, but to bring you this weekly podcast. It's so much fun. We talk about Harry Potter. You better love us. But legitimately, you make this podcast possible with your support.
Thank you.
And so lastly, make sure that you check out our website, which is www.swishflickcast.com. So check out all of the information on Swish and Flick that's compiled into one place with brand new merchandise. We got shirts, we got mugs, we got
Phone cases.
Yeah, we got phone cases.
Sweatshirts.
We got sweatshirts. We got hoodies. I think we even have
Banners.
kids' clothes.
Towels.
We got. Ooh.
Not for you.
We might not. They might be sold out, but not like our, like we didn't sell them out like the website that we get like go through.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to wear official Swish Flick merch, be a fan. And then if you have any of our merch, or if you're just listening to us, tag us on Instagram, and we like to see that. We might repost your picture.
We might. All right.
Timmy.
Other projects.
What's your project, girl?
I'm trying to live life.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. Megan and Katie do things. Follow them. They're on other podcasts that's called what? Grown Up Kids. Go listen. Wherever you listen to Swish and Flick, you can listen to Grown Up Kids. You'll listen to them on the next episode. We'll all be together. Maybe. Unless we officially kick them off. Bye. I have no project because I'm just trying to get through every day. Living my life.
Okay. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Not so traditional kind of episode, but we like to do whatever we want because guess what? This is our podcast. And that concludes this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and don't let the muggles get you down.
Amazing! Just my voice!
Also,
It's Hancock now.
fun fact, John Hancock was not the first person to sign the Declaration of Independence. His is just the largest signature. And they didn't all sign on July 4th.
Some people.
Yes.
Tiffany's whole thing is frozen.
Oh, I didn't know if she was frozen or just like really interested in what I was saying.
That'll do, donkey. That'll do.
That'll do, pig. That'll do. Wiggity, what? Oh, witches.
Well, then I just had a thought. I'm like, I wonder, what if, like, it's cursed?
We just struggled. We struggled with this episode. So that's why it's called The Cursed Episode.
I'm going to stop recording.
Giles Corey cursed us.
Goodbye.